In the dimly lit chambers of an ancient library, beneath the weight of dust-laden tomes, a forgotten parchment lay hidden, concealing a secret that has eluded historians and adventurers for centuries. What ancient tales does this copper scroll hold, and what secrets does it safeguard? The remarkable collection of ancient documents from the 1st century that were discovered in Qumran caves and are often referred to as the Dead Sea Scrolls includes the copper scroll as one of its individual components. However, the other manuscripts housed in the Qumran library are nothing at all like the copper scroll. Because it is so unique among the Dead Sea Scrolls, its author, handwriting, style, language, genre, content, and medium all differ from the other scrolls. Scholars believe that it was placed in the cave at a different era than the other ancient texts. This theory is based on the fact that it is so different from the other scrolls. The copper scroll has been described as perhaps the most unique, the most important, and the least understood scroll. Bedouins were responsible for the discovery of the most majority of the Dead Sea Scrolls. However, the copper scroll was discovered by an archaeologist and is currently on display at the Jordan Museum in Amman. It was found in the area of Qumran that is now known as Cave 3 on March 14, 1952. Because it was the 15th and last scroll discovered in the cave, it is often referred to by its number 3Q15. In contrast to the other scrolls, which were written on papyrus or paper, this scroll was written on a metal that was a combination of copper and around 1% tin. This was done in order to preserve the scroll for as long as possible. In 1955, in order to unroll the rusty metal without resorting to more conventional procedures, the scroll was cut into 23 pieces and then reassembled using stitching. Its language seemed to be unique from that of the other scrolls. The Hebrew had more similarities with the language of the Mishnah than it did with the literary Hebrew of the other Dead Sea Scrolls. John Marco Allegro, who had been in charge of supervising the opening of the scroll, rapidly wrote out the contents of the scroll. After then, it became clear that the chemical in question had a really unique character. In contrast to the other scrolls, which each contained a literary masterpiece, the copper scroll just contained a list. This was not your usual list. Rather, it included directions to 64 locations that held astonishingly large quantities of treasure waiting to be uncovered. 33 of the locations provide information on the abundance of gold and silver, with estimates given in tons. There were scrolls at 3 of the locations, and type vessels were among the other vessels that were listed in the records. It seems that one of the entries discusses the clothes used by priests. The scroll has a listing of more than 4,600 talents of precious metal, which indicates that the entire worth exceeds $1 billion. It is a common misconception that the riches that is concealed beneath the scroll really represents the treasury of the Jewish temple. Some academics are of the opinion that it was formerly a component of the first temple, which was destroyed by Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, in the year 586 BC. The date on the scroll, which places the year of the scroll's construction between 25 and 100 AD, argues against the validity of this claim. A number of experts have come to the conclusion that the riches was at one point in time owned by the Second Temple. Despite this, historical sources suggest that the Romans, when they took control of the temple, were unable to take the most precious treasure from inside the structure. On the other hand, this does not establish without a shadow of a doubt that any of the valuable objects were squirreled away and concealed before the advent of the Romans. On the other hand, there are a great many people who are interested in where it is right now a great deal more than they are in where it originated in the first place. As a direct consequence of the existence of the copper scroll, a number of different expeditions have set out into the globe with the intention of locating the priceless catch, which has led to one of the most comprehensive treasure hunts in the annals of global history. Nevertheless, discovering the prize won't be a simple task for you to carry out on your end. When the author describes the surroundings, they assume that the reader is aware of the secret allusions, even if they don't explicitly state them. Take, for instance, verses 1 through 3 found in the second column. The narrator said that there were 41 talents of silver hidden in the salt pit, which was located below the steps. On the third terrace of the cave that contained the ancient washer's chamber, a total of 65 gold ingots were unearthed. If they are not accompanied with a beginning point, these instructions are useless and should be ignored. In addition, it is also possible that the Romans stole the wealth about 2,000 years ago. If this is the case, then it has been missing from historical records for a considerable amount of time. The fact that this is the case has not deterred the followers in any way. In 1962, one of the most extensive treasure searches ever was carried out under the guidance of John Allegro. The team investigated many of the places listed in the scroll, which led to the discovery of a large number of potential burial sites for the treasure. Despite this, in the end, they were unable to find anything, and in the many decades that it has been open to the public, the copper scroll has never yielded even a single finding that can be touched. A more modern optimist has arrived at the conclusion that the primary objective of the scroll is not to represent gold and silver wealth, but rather the location of the utensils that were in the lost temple. This conclusion was reached by the optimist. Jim Barfield is of the opinion that by using methods of triangulation in conjunction with the information that was revealed on the scroll, he has found some of the locations that are in the general vicinity of Qumran. In relation to the findings reported by Barfield, an item that was published by Breaking Israel News states that in 2007, he went to Qumran and actually found those locations. At one point, the scroll depicted a route that was 40 cubits long, and it was going in the direction of the east. In point of fact, Barfield was able to locate a series of steps that were consistent with the description. In addition to this, he found the remains of a pool that was exactly 40 cubits in length and was located precisely where the scroll had specified it ought to be. However, given that he did not possess the essential governmental power, he was unable to continue any further with his plan. It should not come as a surprise to anybody, given the current political scenario in the area, that the Israelis are exercising caution in deciding who is permitted to tour their territory, since this is something that should be expected from them. The results of this investigation, along with any other serious efforts to follow up on readings of the scroll, will for the time being be blocked. This also applies to any other serious attempts to follow up on readings of the scroll. This is due to the fact that there is a high chance that authorization will not be given for any serious excavation or study for a considerable amount of time. As a consequence of this, the outcomes of this investigation, as well as the outcomes of any subsequent serious attempts to follow up on readings from the scroll, will be thwarted. It is clear that historians and the general public will continue to be interested by it for many more decades to come. But for everyone who has even the slightest trace of the Indiana Jones spirit, it remains to be a fascinating and enticing artifact. If you've enjoyed this exploration, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell, so you won't miss out on our future adventures in uncovering the world's hidden treasures. Thank you for joining us on this suspenseful quest, and may your own journeys through history be filled with fascination and revelation.